What's up, Army? Welcome back to Redemption 46 Studios. I'm Nick.
안녕, Elohimnida.
I'm Keith.
And I'm Curtis.
You know the vibes. Y'all seen the picture. Y'all seen the thumbnail. Y'all know why y'all here. How BTS paved the way.
Oh.
A lot of these videos be like all these links that just real Army know. They send them to like me, but I do think a lot of these are like good open discussions. So I figured these almost be like how we treat these other videos where we'll watch it and then kind of just form our own discussion kind of after that and say, like, you know, if we agree or kind of just give our input on, I guess, how BTS paved the way. Because it's another video that I think is going to be a good contrast to this is, did second gen pave the way for K-pop today, or did BTS kind of change everything on its head and they paved everything that's kind of going on there?
I'm going to remain quiet until...
I know you got some shit to speak about on that, but let's see.
Well, no, that's what I'll see what bro about to say. So.
Cool. So, yeah, without further ado, we can jump right into this.
Yep.
Subscribe.
Hello, baby gang. Today we're going to be watching a video by Kyla Xia and talk about her arguments about the BTS paved the way phrase and whether or not it's a phrase we should say, I guess. I'm going to come from the standpoint of responding and making a counter argument. This is discourse. Sorry.
So this is happening on Twitter now. I guess Blackpink tied one of their records, and so now ARMY is trending that BTS paved the way. So I think this rubs me the wrong way for two main reasons. One, I feel like that sentiment really centers the Western world. Before BTS, there were many, many K-pop idols who were like dominating in Asia, and it's like BTS couldn't do what they're doing without them, and like, do we give them credit? And two, considering how much like K-pop is basically just 90s black artists, fashion, dances, and music, like they paved the way, and I think not enough K-pop fans give that credit where it's due. Don't get me wrong, BTS is a group that, you know, their fame is something that hasn't been seen before for artists coming out of Asia. But I just feel like there's a way to acknowledge that without completely erasing just everyone who's come before them. I also just wish stan culture was less toxic and more grounded in reality, but that's a video for another day.
I'm up now. This is interesting.
Let's first talk about the idea that BTS paved the way is a Western-centric phrase that erases the non-West. It doesn't make sense. First of all, the West versus East dichotomy is very fragile and honestly should be seen as antiquated at this point. Many armies use the term internationally, international success. It's not just Western success, and people dismiss that and say, well, you're just talking about the West, but we're not. We're also talking about non-Western countries in Africa and Asia, etc. And dismissing that low-key contributes to the erasure of those countries' markets within which BTS's popularity has been groundbreaking. Take, for instance, India. India is a part of Asia. Many of you don't realize that. In India, BTS's popularity is tremendous. They are possibly the most popular artists in that country. And yes, K-pop was popular in India to some extent before BTS, but nothing like this. And BTS have started to tap into this more than K-pop artists usually do. They were on the cover of Rolling Stone India the first time a Korean artist did that. They did a huge in-depth interview. It was cool. This is not a Western-centric thing. BTS are paving the way for Korean artists to also tap into the Indian market more, as well as markets in the African continent, South America, etc. Another point, perhaps more to the point, there were numerous things BTS did that had an immeasurable impact on the artists that came after them. They are tangible things. One of the ways that is constantly cited by BTS fans is the fact that their popularity and their impact brought distribution of K-pop albums to places they hadn't been before. Prior to BTS's success, K-pop fans had to use numerous websites to try to ship those K-pop albums to them internationally in order to purchase them. Now you can get them at Target and Best Buy. That's BTS's impact, tangibly. But perhaps more importantly, it's not just a popularity thing. It's not just that BTS are most popular. It's that the things that they did to gain that popularity were uniquely impactful and have had a huge impact on the global music industry since. An important example of this is how they utilized social media. Prior to BTS utilizing Twitter, many K-pop artists may have used Twitter to some extent, but not really at all to the way BTS did. I mean, they had members of the group, and still to this day would have members of the group just tweet unfiltered on the BTS account. They grew a huge fandom that was highly engaged on Twitter, a fandom which also, within the spirit of trying to get BTS more popular, organized heavily in order to do so. This led to BTS winning the Top Social Artist Award at the Billboard Music Awards in 2017, which is a pivotal moment for the history of K-pop. It changed the K-pop market. Months after BTS won that award, within weeks, months of BTS winning that Top Social Artist Award, other K-pop artists, the big K-pop artists you're talking about in videos like these, made Twitter accounts. Just made them. They didn't have ones before, with the purpose of engaging huge Twitter followings in order to win awards, or at least gain massive amounts of visibility the way that BTS did through these social media platforms. Prior to BTS's use of Twitter as well as YouTube, how they posted vlogs on YouTube, a lot of the K-pop content you'd get for the most popular artists would be filtered through channels. A lot of it came from Korean media sources, domestic media industries, and then was distributed through a number of different forums and blogs. That's part of why it's a little bit harder to find content about K-pop prior to like 2013 and 2014, because you have to go through a number of different channels and know what to look for in order to find it. A lot of history got kind of buried. BTS brought all of that into the forefront of the mainstream social media platforms, and that created a huge economy for K-pop artists to take advantage of. A perfect example of this is how BTS went on talk shows. And yes, K-pop artists did perform on talk shows before BTS. SNSD performed on Letterman in 2012. But a performance is something that is filtered through industry channels. You have some sort of a presence ostensibly. If you're in the US, you could just be an indie artist signed to a label and you can perform on talk shows. From the outside, it was a pretty big move for SM Entertainment to get Girls' Generation, SNSD, on David Letterman, but that was done through communicating through the proper channels, through sending things through agencies, to the press, to the people responsible for booking at Letterman, and then them booking Girls' Generation. And yeah, that was a pretty big moment, but it didn't have much of an impact at all in terms of K-pop becoming super popular in the West, as you say. It wasn't like hordes of people were like, who are Girls' Generation? We need to start listening to them immediately after watching that. Most of the people that make a big heyday of that happening are people who are K-pop stans at the time, and the K-pop stans now who lionize those K-pop artists and K-pop fans of the time. Most people who know who BTS are have no idea that Girls' Generation were on Letterman. Most of them don't know who Girls' Generation are, and that's okay. And yes, Girls' Generation, very popular, had an impact, but what BTS did is, through having this massive social media following engaged on mainstream platforms, in a time where top media industries were moving, pivoting to social media, when talk shows were more focused on their social media posts and their engagement on those channels than they were just getting ratings, getting content on the air, you saw that BTS had this huge following and you wanted them on your show because you could get millions of views from doing so. This is what happened with James Corden and other talk shows, Fallon, Kimmel, and then you saw other artists get on those talk shows, do the same segments, and get millions of views. This is a whole industry and economy that is created by BTS. You can argue that, oh, well, this would have happened anyway, but it didn't. It was BTS that did it, so there you go. And that social media pipeline, which is still very focused on Top Social Artist Award at the Billboard Music Awards, a lot of the Twitter engagement is focused on that, and BTS still win it every year. But now you have artists from the Philippines, SB19, who are trying to use the same sort of pipeline in order to bring visibility to themselves. You had Billboard create an entirely new chart based on social media engagement to take advantage of this increased demand, this increased interest in social media engagement for your artist's benefit. So that's just the whole tangent that I've made to describe why that was important. And there's a lot more where that came from. So 3, a lot of the comments are fixated on BTS crediting other artists that came before them, but they conveniently overlook all the artists that came after BTS and are contemporaries of BTS crediting BTS for their success. People like Twice saying BTS paved the way, saying BTS help make the way easier for us. And listen to this clip from Bangchan of Stray Kids.
They paved the way. You have to admit, they paved the way. Anyway, mad respect to BTS. They're amazing.
Stray Kids are one of the more popular groups in K-pop.
It's a fucking
now.
banger he's listening.
That's literally him saying they paved the way. But it's not just fourth gen groups, like almost all fourth gen groups. It's not just some of BTS's contemporaries. It's literally people who came before BTS, like Psy and Rain and Sunmi, who did an interview and was literally like, yeah, no, BTS's impact was the first. It was the biggest. 4. A lot of the comments are focused on giving older generations their flowers. Somebody said, I really wish people would give older generations their flowers. This comment and all the other comments like it are revelatory of what the actual problem is, which is that all these folks just want more acknowledgement for the artists that came before BTS. They're channeling all their frustration about that perceived lack of acknowledgement on a phrase, on a hashtag that basically has nothing to do with it. Saying BTS paved the way, by definition, doesn't have anything to do with saying somebody paved the way for BTS. People pave the way for the people that come after them, right? So BTS, who debuted 9 years ago, by your logic, most definitely have paved the way for the artists that came after them, even without taking into account all the stuff that they did that was unique. And I acknowledge that BTS armies could do better about learning about Korean music history and acknowledging previous artists, but ultimately that's not really a fair ask for most fans. You don't see enthusiasts of basically anything else get swarmed by people saying, well, you should know about the thing that came before it. You don't see fans of Paramore go on Twitter and say, wow, Paramore were great and they were influential, yet see people like Blink-182 paved the way. Don't say Paramore paved the way. Like, that doesn't happen. And if it does, do you really want to be that person? Do you really want to be the old guy on the hill? Like, I remember when, like, don't do that.
trying
You're
to
placing
wait till
a unique,
everything's-
otherizing burden on BTS fans to have some sort of credibility, to take an activistic, advocate stance for Korean music, where enthusiasts of anything else can just be allowed to just be enthusiasts of a thing. And them saying BTS paved the way is a statement of indisputable fact that carries even your logic in it. So it has nothing to do with a historiographical analysis of the Korean music industry. And if it did, it would still be accurate. So there you go. Much of the arguments that happen about the phrase BTS paved the way is just an argument about a lot of people saying the same thing but hearing different things. All these people are making arguments on behalf of BTS fans that are easy to deconstruct, that are basically straw man arguments because they fit the preconceived notion of what BTS fans are, which is toxic and young and naive and fetishizers and, above all, unaware of their surroundings. And that's because, number 5, these conversations are all based on otherizing BTS fans.
Am I really about to talk about K-pop stans, Blinks, and ARMY? I'm really just living dangerously.
None of these folks arguing this, like Kyla, actually take time out to talk to a wide variety of BTS fans in different settings. It's always a confrontational other setting. Every interaction with and conversation about BTS fans is based in the setting of confronting a group of outsiders, an other, rather than taking a look inside the group of outsiders. These interactions that people have with armies, they're always talking about, I saw somebody on Twitter and I tried to tell them the truth and they didn't listen to me. Instead of like, taking the time to think about, what kind of army was that person? What kind of person was that person? You're just using that very anecdotal interaction to summate an entire generalization. What's confusing about this and jarring about this for the armies who watch this happen is that if you take any time inside the BTS fandom, you'll notice, at least within a couple of days, that it's a really complex megastructure of dozens of different fandom subgroups, most of which have tensions with each other and only converge because they all like BTS. The armies that you've interacted with may be part of one or two of those dozens of subgroups. A black English-speaking army who is using Twitter a lot and does not like other K-pop groups alone will have a very different set of practices and beliefs than a white English-speaking army who uses Twitter a lot and likes other K-pop groups. So imagine how it divides across different races, different subcultures, different fandom practices, etc. So when you're not a BTS stan and you've done basically no anthropological research from the inside of the BTS fandom and you speak on BTS stans dualistically as either the toxic people who disagree with me and are mean on social media or the good people who are the silent majority or the sad minority, but they agree with me so they're cool. Yeah, you just sound really weird. You sound like the dude in high school who was like, yeah, all the girls here are the same. They're all so superficial, except Tasha. Tasha is cool. She understands me. Like, what? Do you not think to yourself at some point, hey, this fandom has tens of millions of people in multi-ethnic, multinational, multi-language, multi-social media contexts from all different walks of life, why am I inclined to believe the most simple idea about them? In conclusion, BTS most definitely paved the way. It's undoubtable. It's indisputable. The evidence is right there. Saying so doesn't and shouldn't erase the fact that other artists were popular before them and influenced them. Nobody believes that BTS just appeared out of nowhere and had zero influences and came up with every sound they ever made from scratch. Many armies are well aware of the fact that BTS's influences, much like all of K-pop's influences and all of global pop music's influences, are black artists, especially BTS being so prevalently using hip-hop and R&B. And a lot of the reason that many of these armies recognize this is because BTS themselves constantly recognize it. There's a song called Hip Hop File you should listen to. When armies say BTS paved the way, what do they actually mean? They mean the popularity, the social media strategy, the distribution, and overall marketing that was opened up to a world of artists that became exponentially accessible for K-pop artists following BTS's impact. As a side note, they could also be talking about how BTS's artistic influence is extremely prevalent. If you look at the K-pop industry today, they could also be talking about how social media and marketing strategies and distribution strategies that BTS have employed are now super popular among non-Korean US artists. Like if your fave has multiple charting accounts and has a website that they promote their single on where you can download the MP3 and different remixes, yeah, that's probably really influenced by BTS. Stop making the lazy dichotomy in your head of BTS armies either being the good ones who get you or the bad toxic ones who don't. Stop making the very factual evidence-based statement that BTS paved the way for artists after them with people having a Western bias, because while many people do center the West in everything that they talk about, the West versus the East is a lazy Orientalist dichotomy that in this case ignores many countries that don't exist within that dichotomy. And it's usually a bad faith argument that you're just making because you feel so jarred by these young stans that are talking about BTS's influence and you think that it has to be problematic in some way. Also, just because SNSD and Big Bang were super popular and toured in the US doesn't mean that BTS didn't pave the way for the artists that came after BTS, and that BTS doesn't have a way more significant presence inside the US than SNSD or Big Bang did. I lived through that time period. People didn't know who they were. Like, I had friends who were VIPs and showels. It was a niche thing. I'm sorry to say, it was a niche, and now BTS is not a niche. They are one of the most visible artists in the world. There is a huge distinction between those things. It's not even just a niche became a more popular niche. It's literally the difference between a band that you listen to and a band that everyone knows. And you can still argue the fact that these artists that came before BTS still paved the way for BTS, but even this argument does nothing to negate a 4-word phrase that BTS paved the way. You've seen a bunch of people essentially go on Twitter and say summer is awesome, and you've responded, well, you're erasing the spring? You hate the spring? Feeling alienated from the big subculture is understandable. Wanting the experiences that you had years ago is understandable, but it doesn't make your arguments evidentiary or cohesive. And I'm not trying to be an argument nerdy bro about that. I'm just saying, like, what you're saying doesn't really hold up. And if you want to educate BTS fans or new K-pop fans or whoever on who TVXQ is, start from a place of appreciation for their interests, an appreciation for them as an audience, instead of coming at them with this unbearable condescension and then wondering why nobody listens to you. And before I end this video, a message to armies watching: don't just send this to other armies who agree with what I'm saying. Send it to people who will disagree. Send it to people who will yell at me. Send it to first-gen stans. Send it to second-gen stans that just have their problems with BTS fans. Send it to Kyla with loving, respectful dissent. Because part of the reason this shit keeps happening is because nobody gets out of their bubbles and tries to put forth a good, well-thought-out discourse about this. And I definitely did that. I definitely nailed it. So, yeah. I look forward to being told that I've encouraged harassment. I'll put it on my resume. I just want to make this video really quickly because I'm working on a long video for my other channel, Baby Gang Elliot, which you can see in the description. It's my solo channel. I'm not going to be talking about K-pop much on there, if at all. Subscribe to this channel, Baby Gang Magazine, for more BTS talk, but also just music commentary in general. We have a video about Rosalia in the pipeline. Subscribe to our Patreon to support our different channels, our community, and our art. And have a great day.
You too, bro.
A lot of stuff to unpack.
Hello, Baby Gang. Today we're going to be watching a video.
Want me to go first?
Yeah. Now let me get a slight clip off real quick. So first off, I guess the conversation is the BTS paved the way, especially for like anyone that came before them. Then I would agree 100%. So let's kind of like just get that out the way. BTS is probably my favorite group of all time at this point. I think I'm real ARMY, true ARMY. I think I've seen enough content to speak on like these type of matters now, and I know enough about other fandoms and other like groups and stuff in the K world to where we can have logical conversations now. I definitely get a lot of shit bro was saying, but I also think that he himself was being very dismissive of things. He was being very dismissive of the girls' generation stuff. I think that he was being dismissive on how sometimes, I don't want to call people toxic ARMY, but sometimes people who consider themselves quote unquote ARMY can be very combative and very defensive anytime they're either trying to present you with information.
And from what I've seen, aggressive, but I'll let you get your part off too. I'll let you get what you gotta say off before I go into my piece.
But thank you. Yeah, like can also be like aggressive, and that's whether it's trying to give like new ARMY like information, whether it's them trying to, I guess, win like a debate, quote unquote, or for them to kind of like get their point across. You have people, it kind of sucks, I guess, for somebody to tell someone you can't speak on something if you don't know about something, but they're speaking on genres and things that they don't know about as well to defend their group. So, you know, I was surprised Shorty kind of big up the whole black culture thing and just was like, well, if we being honest, K-pop is just hip hop and R&B and, you know, pop shit from, you know, black groups, blah, 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 with more influences on this. Shout out to her. And Bull's rebuttal still was kind of dismissive also kind of that. Like, yeah, we get it. No, I think it's a lot of people who enjoy like the K-pop stuff who don't understand how big of a deal that is and stuff. Because you'll have some people feeling like our culture got kind of kidnapped, and if we speak on it, you're was it a xenophobic or, you know, or you're a gatekeeper or just kind of like things of that nature. And sometimes it doesn't have to be that way. Like the conversation, it could be like a logical conversation. So I'm gonna kind of start it off with that and then just kind of let y'all go and we can just
Can I ask you something to piggyback off that though?
Sure.
And this is more so for my clarification and both my age as well, compared to, you know, what you've been able to, you know, be around and see and things of that nature. To what degree does that come into question where, because I know we had said countless times that, I know Keith specifically had said that, you know, this feels like when people would ask him what K-pop was, it was like the music we love that is no longer made, at least to my understanding of it as well. My question,
or it's no longer mainstream.
Exactly. My question to that is basically, if something is seemingly set down and people move on, at what point is someone picking that back up and rejuvenating life into it?
Well, some people consider that. I know.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I don't. I get the analogy that it was never really set down.
Yeah, I guess that's more so my question.
Yeah, I get what you mean though. It was never really set down. And even if I did sit down my basketball, don't take it and play with it on a different court somewhere else. And then when I want to play with it, or if I'm telling you about basketball, you act like my history of basketball is irrelevant or never happened or that you don't care about it.
Ironically, though, I also tie that in with what he had said about the Army situation, where it's like, if there's facets of millions of people that this one opinion of someone on this side and this one opinion of someone on this side doesn't blanket term the opinion of that whole side or this whole side.
And I try not to, because even when we talk about whether it's Army or just non-Army people who we've dealt with, I don't like to make blanket statements about everybody, because I can only talk about the interactions or the things that I've seen. So even me, I try to limit certain things I say on here, or even when I'm talking to people, because I may be talking to a fucking bot that's not Army at all, that's just spewing information or going back and forth, and I wouldn't want to take my energy from that conversation and then just be like, oh, well, this is how all this one person is. But my gripes are more towards people I've either talked to myself, that I've seen, or just his interactions with what he said on there. Okay. And another thing too is that I feel like I was about to lose my mind. I get in the K world that comparison is like a bad thing, or people don't kind of like it.
I can't see how that is, though, considering how blunt the country is and the culture is of people just, saying stuff straight up, telling you what they think about something, about all of the shows, the kingdoms, the queendoms, all these, the whole countdowns, the Mnets, these shows and everything where people go on there and they're literally, going up against peers, going up against people, against, what I'm saying? And to put that with something that we went through, that's why I was like, when I saw someone say that about us on Twitter, talking about like the choreo battles, like it was some
I've seen people on there say
some pedantic thing, like,
yeah,
I'm
like how
bro,
dare
they literally
you
do battles. Like I hate pretentious, how pretentious some people are these days, bro, because it's like, bro, shut the fuck up. Like I said, these people go on, these groups go on, they're up against people from the moment they go and audition. Everything is competition.
They have survival shows.
Yeah,
so
it's called fucking survival. Like, you know what I'm saying? So it's not like we're comparing these people as people, we're comparing them as artists, and we're having fun with it. No one's tearing the artist down, no one's doing any of that. So that, let me get off that soapbox so I can answer this, because I do have to jet. But the first thing I want to address is the woman. I think her name was Kyla. What she was saying pretty much did come from an older perspective and kind of a more objective perspective of things. She sounds definitely like someone who's lived through all of this and was a K-pop fan back when, in the first gen, second gen, everything like that. So with that being said, I think he came at this I think he tried to be somewhat objective, but was definitely more so, dismissive, to a lot of her points and everything like that. So boom, number one, I don't even think I have to touch on the influence thing, because I don't think BTS are like culture vultures or whatever like that. I think more so that sentiment is going towards fans not knowing anything. Look at how many times we have people come into the comments say, I was not even a fan of rap. I didn't listen to rap before BTS. And a person like me, if a comment would be like, this is the best rap, this is the greatest rap of all time. This is the greatest rap. Even me being, even my objective self, as much as I try to be, I can't take that type of statement serious, just because how can you say that? How can you speak on rap? You don't know what it came from. What's the reason people rap about certain things? I agree, today's rap is very much so not in the most creative state, but that doesn't take away from the fact that there is still great music out there being made and everything like that. Now, boom, bringing this back to BTS. I think the main problem is with him in this statement is that he's speaking on this way more eloquently and detailed than people on social media. Than some of the armies I've seen, because I've seen it both sides. I've seen armies get attacked for sure, but I've also seen armies attack people. That Blackpink thing that she's talking about, that nobody said anything about BTS. I remember that day. Nobody said anything about BTS when they did what they did, but it was armies hopping in them, quote them, and I know armies are going to be like, no, those are the bad fans, or that part of the fandom, everything like that. You're right. You can't control everybody, but it does happen. So
there's a reflection on you regardless.
Yeah, and that's just how people look at stuff. It's gonna be like, oh, you did it regardless. I don't think that way now. Like I said, I just learned to tune shit out and move accordingly. So but like I said, no one said anything about BTS, but you see them in the quote, in the QTs and the replies and everything like that. Oh, BTS paved the way. So off the rip, a lot of times this statement is used aggressively and as a stunt and derogatory.
The flex.
Yeah, as a flex to
really
people.
condescending.
Yeah, it's very it's not
Kids,
uplifting.
the last time we saw it,
Huh?
When Stray Kids went number one, it was like,
yeah.
thank BTS.
Yeah, when they won a number one record, I'm just like, bro, what did you know what I'm saying? I don't think that has anything to do with, even with Chan saying what he said. I don't think BTS getting the number ones and everything like that. I don't think that would stop if they didn't get it. I don't think that would stop Stray Kids from doing it or someone else from doing it in the streaming era now, because that has to be brought up too.
He had mentioned that too when he was just like, clearly if BTS wasn't doing something someone else did, but BTS did it. And like I said, it was the whole kind of dismissiveness. And it's funny that the dismissiveness that he's talking about is the same dismissiveness that like kind of Army sometimes that the people that I've seen kind of be very dismissive of certain things too. And it's just like, bro, it's okay to give flowers and it's okay to like big up
to not be everything doesn't have to be about you or your group, or I'm a multi fan. I don't use the term stan because first of all they use that word now and they don't even know the origin of it is not a good thing. It's not good to be a stan. I'm from the generation where being a stan wasn't cool. But pre-social media, pre-internet, so I still rock with it that way. But whatever, that's semantics. But I'm a K-pop fan now. So yes, I'm Army. I love BTS, but I also love Dreamcatcher. I also love NCT. I love ATEEZ. I love Big Bang. I'm growing to love 17 and Stray Kids. I'm all over, and then Mamamoo, everything like that. So I'm all over with it now. Within the past 18, almost 14 months, something like that. So. She had another point. The previous groups. That's what I want to get to more than anything.
With the Paved the Way thing. Big Bang.
He's talking. He was very dismissive of how hard they was going in Asia and how that set the stage for the third gen. I really don't want to spoil too much because you said we were going to do something about second gen. Paving the way or setting everything up. So I don't want to spill too much about Big Bang's contributions to K-pop and how they were really doing shit, and TVXQ and everything like that too, and Super Junior, everything like that. Because if we're being honest,
no one fucking knew what TVXQ.
if we be would I be remiss if I said Lee Soo-man paved the way? No. He created the whole idol structure. Every time you want to know something funny, every time they debut a new group, pretty much is considered the start of a new generation. When was it HOT? When they debuted, that was the start of the first gen of actual K-pop. When TVXQ debuted, that was the start of the second gen. When EXO debuted, that was the start of third gen. When NCT debuted, that's the start of fourth gen. So look at that. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, and like I said, I wanted to be clear because my voice is getting raised. None of this is anger at BTS because I love BTS, and I'll say it just like Nick, they're very much on their way to being my favorite group just ever, or at least, what I'm saying, just in a general sense, off sheer discography alone. So, but I think, like I said, the fans these days, everything is so weaponized. People have to have something to beef about. People have to turn something into. Ironically, y'all don't want to compare groups, but you do this. You start these arguments. We've seen armies be
throw
catty.
Throw stone and then hide your hand.
Yeah, you throw stones and hide your hand when people be like, bro, what the fuck is wrong with you? Why are you being a weirdo? Like I said, I've seen 3 or 4 fandoms right now as of now be toxic. It's some fandoms I haven't seen anyone be toxic from.
Just in the K world in general.
Oh shit, we going in general is a lot, but in the K world, I've seen toxic armies. I've seen toxic EXOs. I've seen toxic ATEEZ, and I've seen toxic.
Speaking on it.
What was the other one? I said armies. Oh, Blinks. Those are the 4 that I've seen both sides of. I haven't seen anyone else yet kind of be
We got death threats.
You know what I'm saying? So I've seen both sides of those four fandoms, and like I said, none of this shit should ever get that deep. But it is because people, the same stuff I talk about with people being anonymous on the internet. You can say whatever you want on the internet, hide your hands, and don't have to worry about anybody really getting at you and everything like that. That's where a lot of this stuff even comes from. Because, like I said, Boa, she was big for popularizing K-pop in Japan, which Korea and Japan is known to have had issues dating back centuries before the fucking music industry over there was even a thing. We're talking about, just centuries of shit going on. She popularized K-pop over there. Boom, that's that. Big Bang, like I said, I won't go into every single detail. They changed the image for what it was. They're the first group where the rap line was to have a rap line, to be honest, and where the rap line were the central guys of the group. Focal Big Bang.
Big Bang.
They were the ones who introduced light sticks. They were the ones who had named their fandom and everything like that. That shit started with them. And there's a few more things they do. Like I said, I don't want to spoil it, but stuff like that set the stage for third gen and obviously BTS to come in and do what they did. The major props I've always given BTS is social media. They took advantage of social media, particularly promoting over here and growing their fan base over here. And they were the first group to do that. Now we have other groups who are more popular outside of Korea than in Korea, a la Dreamcatcher, a la
Card.
Yes. It's a few more groups like that who are more popular outside of the domestic area and everything like that, and can tour, promote, and make so much money outside of Korea and stuff like that. That was not even a thought. SM didn't even promote outside of Korea for real. Girls' Generation going over there, I think that was one of the few times you seen them promoting over here and doing that stuff.
He played that too. He was like, no one was checking for them.
Yeah, no one was checking for that, and that's cool. But guess what, bro? If I've never won a lottery, if I've never won $1 million, you know what I'm saying? If no one from my neighborhood won $1 million, and then I make it, and then someone else makes it, am I supposed to be like, yo, no one was checking for you when you did it? We loved when Nick won the lottery, though. That's when the hood really got happy. But when Low won, nobody gave a fuck. But when Nick won, that's when it was. What? That doesn't make any sense. We all winning. You know what I'm saying? We're all building this.
And another thing too, Low.
This the last thing I want to touch on before I dip out. He said the niche thing about K-pop. I think he's overstating it. Yes, K-pop is now a self-sustaining industry, or even more so a self-sustaining industry in kind of culture and genre and everything like that now, but it's still very niche. Some people don't even know that K means Korean. Some people, you know what I'm saying? And because people don't automatically think like that. People don't automatically think about the countries and everything like that. I don't know where this came from. I don't listen to that type of stuff. Before we reacted to this, did you know anything about BTS?
BTS specifically, no.
That's where I was. That's where Nas was. That's where Ty was. So and Zach as well.
Jarek probably.
Well, Jarek, he knew about BTS, but he didn't like jump in and everything like that. So there's still a lot of people out here. I run into people all the time and talk to people, and it always comes up because I'm always listening to the music, because I'll promote this shit. I don't care if people ask, and I'll tell them. So a lot of people still don't even know what K-pop is or about, or that it's Korean pop music. That's still very much considered a niche thing over here.
So some people have a bad taste in their mouth of what they think.
A lot of people. I was talking to a couple. They're now subscribers. Shout out to y'all. Y'all know y'all. I won't say y'all names, but they're now subscribers. They were like, well, my hindrance from it was that these guys look so overproduced. Not just talking about BTS, but just K-pop in general, with the hair, the makeup, the styling, everything, the music, how everything. Everything seems like it's
a bunch of industry plans.
Yeah, like it's just manufactured.
But I think that goes into the question
stuff
that I was kind of asking when we first started: how authentic is it? Because as Americans, like we're especially Black Americans, we used to seeing our stuff that we create kind of being taken and romanticized and used for profit and then given back to us when they're done. Is this just another thing that's happening only in an overseas fashion? And that's kind of what the vibe that I was getting when I was kind of just peeking my head in to see what's going on. Like, and I'm cool. I'll come back in about 6 months.
And another thing too, like shout out to like the army who haven't been toxic, because a lot of redeemers in general are Army who, even if they feel opposite way of whatever we feel, they most of the times are understanding, patient, able to have a conversation and go back and forth to and be like, oh no, well, this is what I meant, or no, this is what's going on, or hey y'all, I know y'all doing y'all thing y'all way, but in the K world, this is what's going on, because the quote unquote Redeemer Army really helped us segue a lot of traffic early on.
Yo, Redeemer
in the K
Army,
world.
Patreon and YouTube, y'all are so much a part of this journey, and we let y'all know all the time, but y'all are so much a part of this journey and growth, and I appreciate you guys so much for that, especially the ones who aren't toxic or who don't jump to the first thing they hear, the first negative thing that they hear, and start to write comments and shit like that and come for us or say
because these
stuff like
strays
that.
is coming like almost for niggas who ain't subscribed and people.
Yeah,
but not just that, but like you got Army who will not necessarily agree when we say something like toxic, but they'll be like, "Yo, you're right." Like so, my little thing, they'll be like, "Yeah, man, like." I'm not even going to like talk about it. Either you know about it or you don't. Yeah. But like, yeah, yo, you're kind of right. Like that's not what he does. You know, but he's learned and he's practiced. Like, no doubt. Like you know what I mean. And that wasn't to say, or they understood what I was saying or how it came across or whatever. It wasn't just like, oh, you know, you don't know what. Like, yeah, we kind of do. We kind of do know what he's going through. Yeah, we kind of do know what he's been through.
Yeah, and even people wanting like, you know, what's your P.O. box? We want to send y'all like toys or like give y'all more information. People letting us hold their Weverse account so we can learn more information.
Give them
we appreciate that
content.
Too. Yeah,
people
like,
sharing like I said, that Rise of
even going to the concert.
episode 12, probably one of the most touching moments of this whole journey for us when we were up here.
Is that when you cried?
We got emotional. You
and cried,
people joining in the comments and sharing their testimonies, stuff I didn't expect to hear ever from any of this, stuff like that. So like I said, this isn't a bad session on Army or anything like that. This is more of how weaponized this statement is used. Yeah. And like I said, it's only 4 fandoms that I've seen be where I've seen great, conversation and people who really just out there and just happy and pushing it forward, and I've seen the toxic side of them as well.
And that's why bros would say and that's why it sucks because like we've had conversations like even in Vegas when we was talking, and I'm not gonna say who, but y'all know who, when we was talking and it just was like, well, I read the comment this way, and she was like, well, maybe they meant it this way, or just them giving us information like, well, y'all weren't around when this happened and we're so used to being attacked that now we're on the defensive.
Right.
So now every time something happens, it's us almost like jumping on shit. And it's like, don't turn into the thing that y'all despise to begin with. It's like, we hated the big three. Well, now you kind of bigger than the big three. You big dog on top. So it's just... it's weird for BTS to be so positive and have great energy, and I know people want to protect that energy, but I don't think some people should like be bullies. And when it is time to be a bully, cool, because I do think certain situations, certain situations just should have went harder.
Like when the members get attacked and stuff like that, but now Hybe is starting to sue. And,
they just sue the shit out of anybody.
So now I do like that, but I do think that's something that Army's really contributed to. And really got behind and got the ball rolling on that. So I applaud Army, and I think, like I said, I think the Paved the Way thing is used as a weapon or a flex and everything like that.
Because I think at this point that shit is obvious. Yes. Like it's just the BTS Paved the Way. Yes. For anybody behind you. Yes.
I'll say this, and I think this is a generous number. I'll say about 90% of people over here, at least, your entry to K-pop is BTS. 90% of the Western fans, unless you are Asian and were watching the stuff, then the number kind of probably drops. So, but I'll say...
I don't mean to cut you off, but I think that number is a little different. Only because I know a lot of people fuck with Gangnam Style. So that might have been their intro to K-pop.
True.
So, but here's the thing.
Oh, your intro versus what kept you, or
no.
But that's what I'm saying.
Let's say Psy did pave the way, right? And BTS came behind them. Just because Psy paved the way, built the house, BTS kept the lights on, paid all the bills. That's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah,
that's not a knock on BTS. It's just what it was.
I think some fans take that as a knock.
And that's their. But see, this is the whole thing about the entire conversation. That's their problem.
Mm-hmm.
That has nothing to do. Like we're up here trying to not bash, but clarify and kind of like almost. We're walking a very thin line here where we're trying to like, yo, you guys are kind of fucking up. But in the same token, we get it. Like we're walking that line where we're kind of teeter-totter and it has nothing to do with the actual band in which we're talking about. It has everything to do with the fan base. And like that's the problem.
Particularly on social media.
Right, but even people like him. Like this is seriously, but like seriously. This is a guy who had a camera and had a mic and is enforcing his opinion as fact. But it's not the case in every situation.
Spring came before summer. That was funny as shit.
But it's not the case in every situation, right? So, like, if you were to see this, you'd be like, oh, well, this is how Army feels. This is not how Army feels. This is how he feels about certain instances.
Well, he said at the end, feel free to disagree.
No, and that's fine. But we know that people don't listen to everything and then respond. They listen to what they want to hear and then they respond.
Some of these Patreon comments where Patreon used to be like a more...
you know what I mean?
Safe space now is some of these comments starting to get a little, like I said, I don't respond to
getting a little YouTube-ish.
Yeah, they starting to get a little YouTube-ish.
If I see something too crazy, I'll remove it. And I tell people that on Patreon, it will continue to be a safe place. Joking is cool, but if I see something that's like crazy, even tell me. Even if I didn't see it, tell me, and I'll remove something that's.
Well, I mean, I'm chilling. Like I said, I don't respond to a lot of the stuff now. I just learned to kind of just move past. But like I said, certain instances where this whole BTS Paved the Way thing came up was nothing positive. It'd be one thing if somebody made a video about this and like, oh my God, guys, BTS paved the way, and this is how BTS paved. And it's just an info video.
It's called Ronza Banks. And it's good.
That's dope.
And it's good.
And I think she deserves an award for that shit. Or at least a pick with the group.
But it's saying it without stealing credit from whoever else. Is the spotlight is on at the time.
It uplifted people. It had Lisa in there. It had other groups in there.
Remember, Keith, the rise started that way. The rise started with
speaking about
Western culture, about how they came here first. Well, really, it did the history of SK after the war, and then what had to happen, and blah, blah, blah. I think we should. I want to rewatch.
I was just saying on my own.
I want to rewatch one and give it. I want to rewatch episode 1 and give it to YouTube so they can see what we talk about. On the show.
So that's a perfect point you just put on everything I was saying. So, like I said, I'll end mine like this. That is great. That is when something is positive and everything like that. That Stray Kids situation, that shit was disgusting. When they got the #1, that should be something. You don't got nothing to do with that.
That's like Janet getting the #1 album. You better thank Michael.
Yeah. What was weird about the situation was I told you
seriously
when I went on Twitter and seen and I had people that was Army like, oh no, the stage said something first, and I was like, I'm sorry, I didn't see that.
Yeah. I said, I rock with that.
And whatever happened to being a bigger person? Like when did that shit go out the window?
They were never the bigger person when we debuted.
See, that's the thing. But or is it only convenient to say when you think you got the high ground? Like, and I mean, take the high ground,
or just let the numbers speak. If it's that deep, if somebody's coming up, somebody like that shouldn't a stay shouldn't even be saying shit like that. Or like I said, I don't even hear people from second gen talk crazy. First of all, most of these people who are from second gen, say like a Big Bang, like a VIP, that's a Big Bang's fan. Mm-hmm. These people most of the time are our age or older, and they then move past the whole fandom shit and everything like that. And they're pre-social media, especially pre-Twitter and all of that stuff like that, wherever these groups would meet and run into each other.
Bruh.
So I doubt they were going to be on the internet
I've never seen BTS win a title and somebody say, you better thank Big Bang, or hey, you better thank Rain. Like, I've never seen that.
And with that,
enjoy your night. Morning.
And that in itself is just kind of crazy.
On me.
Yeah, and like I said, the reason why I wanted to shout out the positive Army and stuff is just because I don't want people who who don't make negative comments or people
to feel like we're talking about
them.
to
feel like we're talking about them because really I just wanted to have this conversation because I feel like some things are a mood point. I feel like BTS has paved the way for anybody behind them, and BTS did their thing, and I think for me, it's safe to say there will never be another group like BTS in the K world. It's almost like the LeBron thing. I think LeBron is the greatest basketball player of all time, especially all around. There are some people who feel like
how many
Michael
rings
Jordan,
he got?
rings is a team thing. But there's some people that's gonna say like Michael Jordan. I'm not going back and forth with somebody if I'm like LeBron paved the way for players to get player movement, more money in their contracts, bigger endorsement deals, help with more international things, and to get the
To
game
be more socially responsible.
To be more socially responsible.
And still be an ambassador to the game.
It's a moot point for someone to say, well, Jordan did because I almost look at BTS as like the LeBron. I guess like Jordan
but you know what's
would be
funny?
like Big Bang.
When Jordan, I'm kind of old, but no, when Jordan was playing, people were dismissing his goatness in lieu of Wilt.
Yep.
Like, oh well, Wilt scored 100 points in a game. Wilt averaged 20. Yeah, but let's look at that a little differently.
I've never had to diminish someone else's light for my light to shine, or for me to.
This
talk
isn't a
about,
candle in the sun situation.
Yeah. So it's. I just think that's weird, and that like that's a moot point. I think BTS is going to continue to kind of do things. I don't want to say like they're just getting started and shit.
Well,
I think this conversation.
What are you trying to say? The best is yet to come?
Yeah, just because I think this conversation is going to be different like in 4 or 5 years. I think in 4 or 5 years they will successfully all have solo work that's going to be multi-platinum, #1 or top 10 charting, and then come back together and then still do stuff.
Does platinum, gold, all that, does that even matter anymore in the streaming world?
Yeah, because they still condense the streams and like turn it into like physical.
But like, does it hold the same weight as like, yo, I want platinum my first week? Right.
Well, the K stuff is different because they still do physical copies and shit.
I know my daughter wants one. I don't feel like buying it because she ain't got a CD player.
Still do physical copies and shit. So
but what's the point of me buying it for if she ain't got a CD player?
Shit, look at physical. That shit still matter.
They also do things. They'll have like special tracks on them and things
that only will be on there. Shit, Drake and 21 just did almost 800K.
She doesn't have a CD player.
But Kurt, you haven't really talked. My fault, bro. Like, go.
No,
on.
I wanted you guys to really kind of get your points across.
It's still a lot.
No, because I know it's a lot to digest, and I know we're gonna go on side points and kind of elaborate on those things, and I just didn't want to mess up the core of kind of what any of you were trying to get across, but kind of the way I stand on it is ultimately, I feel like it's all semantics, honestly. Like, just to put this into perspective, we all know that, one army isn't going to be all army or shouldn't be all army. And one fan from another, fan base isn't going to represent all that. So if one individual from this place sees one individual from this place, even if this individual started the fight, so to speak, it ultimately becomes about your group attacked my group. So now I'm attacking your group. And it's just like, the group has nothing to do with it. A large part of the fan base probably has nothing to do with it. And if it spans from other fights or other rivalries from past arguments or incidents, then it becomes a gang up on so-and-so situation, whether it's Army or whether it's anyone else. And I'm not going to make that particularly an Army thing necessarily, because I don't think that's fair to anyone necessarily either. But just keeping it in a positive light as well. We had said this when we went to Vegas. We got the opportunity, of course, to fly across the country. And we were in Vegas, and we were seeing Army. Of course, we were surrounded by Army, of course. So us being surrounded by Army, each of those individual armies, even though they were, quote-unquote, probably mostly American Army, at least it's safe to say that a wider number of them were, as opposed to International Army, K Army, any of those, kind of other areas. But it's like whenever a group performs, and let's just say they perform in Brazil, that Brazil Army is going to be different than, they're still Army, but it's going to be very different. And even the individuals within that Brazil Army are going to be different. They're going to have different life experiences, different songs that gravitate towards them, different, paths in and of their own right. So I try to look at everyone as individuals, and just the fact that, BTS has culminated so much individuals that, latch onto them and kind of seem to, come together for a large portion of it. I'm always going to admire those things, of course. The reason I bring up the semantics, when I just, started talking was, at what point do we kind of draw the line with that stuff? So, and it is almost a social network argument where, you know, the Sorkin line, where it's like, at what point, if I make a new chair, do I own the credit for a chair versus having to give credit to who made a chair? But the reason I'm bringing that up here is, look, clearly the advent of social media changed everything, changed music in general. So clearly anyone pre-social media isn't gonna, like, they would have had to pave a different road, so to speak. So everyone is responsible for paving some kind of road, but it's just, if I'm to give, you know, hypothetically BTS credit for the Twitter aspect of it, do I give the creator of Twitter credit then? Because if you didn't have Twitter, you couldn't market those things. And then do I give Bill Gates credit for the internet and the computer? And then, like, how far do you go back in doing these things? And that's the reason I say semantics, is because it's just ultimately, you know, if you didn't have a plane, do I bring up the Wright brothers? Like, oh, you couldn't fly there if you didn't have a plane. It's just like, where do you kind of draw that line? That's
funny.
When you really think about it that way, everything is kind of subjective in that regard. And that's just kind of, all that to say, like, I'm not someone who engages in, you know, very much social media or anything like that. So it's just something that, like, I don't really have my ears to the ground to kind of hear a lot of these arguments or a lot of the things that, you know, fans might be saying between other fans, or who bigs up who and who, you know, tries to step on someone else. Like, it's just, those things are just kind of like, I just detach from it in a lot of ways. But main emphasis of my point, I do understand a lot of what is being said in this video and how there is subjectiveness, of course, but ultimately, like, if the question is really, you know, did BTS pave the way, and you're looking at, you know, the Twitter aspects of it and how, you know, the physical copies being sold and other kind of situations like that he had brought up in the video, of course, you know, they did. And then everyone after them who's had the ability to, you know, have success, and, you know, how many more ears particularly were on K-pop, and how no one has so to speak reached like that zenith of a mountain that they had, you know. So of course you're going to attribute them to all those things, but I ultimately also do think it is kind of what you had said, Nick, in the sense that, like, this isn't a situation where one person has to shine, you know what I mean? Like, there could be multiple lights, you know what I mean? This doesn't have to be a situation where it's like, you know, like a relay where someone has to just take the torch and kind of run with it or anything like that. It's like, everyone definitely deserves their flowers, so to speak. And if this is a topic to kind of talk about those things, where it's like, oh, like if you're saying, you know, so-and-so paved the way or anything like that, or BTS wouldn't have the shine they have if it wasn't for, you know, so-and-so. It's just, again, you know, how far back do we, you know, kind of draw that line? I mean, even Lowe had said the idol training program in general. But knowing, obviously, BTS being outside the big three, all the challenges and adversities they had to face, still working hard, not having much money to kind of market themselves, promote themselves, and then doing everything that they had done, you know, not even including the Twitter aspect of it. So all that is, you know, beyond incredible. And of course, you know, people are going to learn from that and kind of, you know, identify with those things. So I definitely see how they paved the way, and they truly did. But in a lot of it, I'm not going to speak on a little bit of the dismissiveness of kind of who did what, because I'm going to be honest, I'm not as educated as far as like all the second gen stuff, the first gen stuff, and then even as you had said, some of the influences from, like, just to speak a little bit briefly, is you know, JYP, you know, in one of they have like a few dance practice rooms and everything. One of them is literally the Michael Jackson room. You know, and we had seen the video how big of an influence Mike was, of course, when, you know, basically all that to say, it's like there's clearly influence, you know, from around the world. And I don't necessarily think that there's anything wrong with that. And the reason I'm saying that in regards to this is, given the homogeneousness of the culture, and that BTS in particular has always, you know, paid respect to anyone who's come before them or any influences that they had. I mean, he had mentioned even the hip hop file, where they kind of all, or they, you know, when they all basically shouted out the biggest rappers that kind of influenced them and things like that. I mean, J-Hope with the, you know, Becky G with the chicken noodle soup thing. So it's just like there's been influences constantly, you know, from around the world, but they've given those flowers. So ultimately, if the group is cool about it, and, you know, they're paying their respects, they're, you know, like, I don't really see why we have to stem outside of that and kind of turn something that's ultimately positive into something that's negative.
Because it's a fan base thing, and
that's exactly my point.
Something I wanted to touch on real quick before we get too far away. You said the metaphor you used, the relay race. You said it's not. I would, and not to be argumentative, but just in the idea of what a relay race is.
Oh, yes.
I would say it is exactly a relay race. So you have groups like Big Bang and those people, they ran as far as they could, even built a K industry for BTS to thrive. So would they not owe them? But that's not the point what I'm trying to make. They ran as far as they could until they couldn't. Then they passed the torch. BTS is running as far as they can until they no longer can, and then they will pass the torch.
So it's always separate. I think it's ultimately running. I think it's separate of. I think it's separate of a torch, though, in the sense that it's like, if you're indicating that's like, if Big Bang hypothetically is looking and they're like, yo, these BTS guys, they're really starting to come up or whatever. It's like, you know, our numbers are cool, but they're dipping. You know, y'all, let's just stop touring and let them, you know, do their thing. Like it kind of.
I don't know. It's a cutthroat business in a cutthroat world. They're going to take the torch from you, but like it wasn't. Like, even before BTS, it was EXO.
No, so, I know. You know what I mean? Like, that's why I brought up the semantics of kind of, like, where do you kind of draw that line? You know what I mean? Of, like, going back and then going back and then going back and then going back.
Is the perennial torch, like, the K-pop torch?
And that's the thing. I wasn't necessarily even saying.
Is that the torch?
So, the perennial torch would be the K-pop torch, and now with the K-pop torch, so it's almost like the tour of the Olympics, right? It starts somewhere and it finishes somewhere else, right?
What if I told you I feel like BTS is no longer just a K-pop group, though? So it seemed like that torch.
Well, that's the thing. I wasn't even trying to use the metaphor in that sense. It was more so. It was more so to say that, like, honestly, it was more in the sense of we're running in circles, kind of around the argument, in the sense that it's just like.
I don't think it's our argument to have. I don't think it should be an argument at all. Because, like you said, the groups.
Yeah, no, I'm not arguing.
Like, none of these conversations are happening with the groups. BTS isn't hitting up straight kids like, yo, straight kids.
They big up each other.
Like, yo, give me my. This is not Roman Reigns standing in the middle of the ring talking about acknowledge me.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? like this is.
And that's
this
ultimately
is not
why I
them.
kind of boil it down to semantics. And I'm not trying to, take away from anything that the video is presenting or anything like that. I just ultimately, I feel like it's a healthier mindset when fans kind of try to separate themselves from the stigma of those things. I always try, just generally, I always try to look at people as individuals, at least to the best of my ability. You know what I mean? So it's like, I never try to see fans as kind of a collection of a group, but rather an individual.
Do you think this is a situation where the fan mind state of we did this, we is now becoming a problem to where it is becoming toxic because they're fighting? It's almost like sometimes what we say when we have, disagreements. So you're arguing points that I never made. I being BTS. You are arguing points as my fan base that I never made. You're putting me and my name in situations that I never asked to be in.
Can I just bring up a brief point too? Chan had recently did a thing for Stray Kids. You know how he does like his V Lives, and this ties into the BTS. But basically, he had basically called out some stays where he was like, kind of don't do that. Don't act as though, don't be that person. You can big us up. You don't have to tear anyone else down. That reflects negatively on us as a group. At least to my understanding, I rarely, if ever, have heard any artists speak on that. But basically, all that to say, that was just one example of a prominent K-pop artist basically just speaking and saying, yo, the fans, like, this is something that is just a you thing. Like, that is going to bring negativity on us, And I imagine, even if a lot don't speak on it or aren't able to, that there are aspects of that.
Another thing too, and we could jump back into your point because I know you wanted to ask a question. Shout out to him because he did have like a lot of facts and a lot of stuff he talked about. They did talk about like on the Rise episode as far as like
the physical copies.
The physical copies that no matter how people feel. They weren't doing that until Army was calling in asking for that stuff. So it kind of did open the gateway for the physical copies to get here. What else was bro talking about
well,
there?
Even he said second gen, or the example that was shown was second gen, but that could be like an editing thing, so I'm not going to necessarily touch that. But basically when BTS had won the Billboard through to Twitter, literally within days or weeks after, I believe he had said other groups had just literally made accounts. So there was a very tangible kind of line to that.
And for some of y'all that don't know, that's just the advent of technology.
And that's why I said the semantics, because the advent of technology, I mean, maybe it did create a perfect situation.
Yeah, American artists do it. Soulja Boy. Y'all may not like him and stuff,
TikTok
or some people don't like
everything.
him.
Bieber.
He's well, I was going to mention Soulja Boy in particular. He's an innovator. I think YouTube came out 03. I think 03. Yeah, I think in 2003. He was using YouTube heavy for when 5.
You said 5.
I'm gonna Google it. I feel like it was before that. When was Crank that 05? Was Crank that 2005? It was 2007. Okay. Good look. So
Thank you, Lo.
he used YouTube for Crank That and for other stuff or whatever, and was kind of one of the first rappers to create viral moments through the internet. And it's just, you know how many other people started uploading their videos and shit all like on YouTube and other things like that. So Army, in 4 or 5 years, something else is going to come out that's going to change the whole industry again.
And
We
honestly,
don't know.
We don't know
we
because
don't know what it is.
The thing with V Live or whatever, like no longer going to be a thing. I mean, it could be restructured. Like I don't know the specifics on it, but all that to say, there could be plenty of instances like that. And just to add to that point, as far as how you had said the Soulja Boy.
Thanks, Lo. February 14th, 2005.
Fact check.
Valentine's Day? That nigga ain't nothing better to do? All right, never mind.
Damn. But it was even like when Netflix had kind of first came out, Adam Sandler was one of the big kind of quote unquote A-listers in Hollywood that had done that, but
Netflix
it was almost
wild when it first came out.
But it was almost seen as like a negative thing where it was
it was a bad thing.
If your career died, that's where you went to kind of make stuff. Like if a studio couldn't get behind you, and now look at what that's become. But I'm saying
they laughed. They was laughing at him, bro. Like they was like, "What?
Yes.
Oh, his career is done and shit. You getting a Netflix deal? Ha ha ha." 4 or 5 years removed.
And look what streaming has become.
Now everybody's getting the Scorsese and them started jumping on Netflix.
But that's what I mean. And my point is, everyone sees something as not cool or afraid to test the waters. It's
until
a
it
risk
works.
in some way until it works, and it's that's a little bit of what I'm seeing here. I mean.
So and I'm just being devil's advocate at this point.
No, of course. It helps to have a convert or an adverse opinion just to gauge where people sit.
BTS uses Twitter. Is that obviously? I don't physically think RM, JK, and everybody else hopped on Twitter.
Nah, he said they were.
But is that more of a management pushing them thing, or is it that we
said
should get ahead of the technology?
It said they were individuals that uploaded on
Twitter.
BTS's collective account, at least my understanding of it.
But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, from what it felt like, Keith, and at least from the stuff we looked at, it looked like BTS was doing their best to show Army their personality. Pre-debut.
Can I add to that real quick?
See, that's smart though.
And that reminds me, because even pre-debut, before any of this had happened, the reason we have so much content was because they had vlogged themselves, their journals every day, but that was for their artistic growth as well as, connecting with fans and things of that nature. But that was a seed that was planted way back then that then carried through and then had that big boom, so to speak, with
smart.
So if that's the case, if that's how they got their rising, do they owe Diddy? Because that making the band shit,
like making the band type stuff.
It was pretty much the same thing, only without the technology backing it to where they can individually do it.
Yeah,
they had to go through.
Well, was a strong word, but it goes back into Kurt's point.
Right.
Where once you start,
where do you draw the line?
Where you draw the line at Owen and shit. And I hate it because basically it's
you use a guitar and it's like, well, who invented the guitar? You couldn't have made that sound without that. And it's just like,
and it's funny because like you don't. It's only in certain instances. Like I never hear anybody. I almost say never. I rarely hear anybody say, "Yo, shout out to Ike Turner and Little Richard for making the first rock and roll record."
Nah, because I think everything is going to come off as either combative or argumentative.
And
almost.
honestly, and that's one thing I did mean to touch on that I did really respect and like about the video is the fact that whenever people try to go up or big up any kind of achievement, it always comes with the negative shade of like, because you get it always comes off combative and negative as opposed to uplifting and positivity. Or if it's like, someone else isn't allowed to have their shine, so to speak, unless you kind of chime in and photobomb, so to speak. And stuff like that is just like it just walks a really difficult line.
Yeah, it sucks because you know, the whole point of this channel and the whole point of like us having conversations, obviously we bid sometimes and it's fun like to poke fun at things, but we don't never openly just try to like bash shit, trash anybody or like do things of that nature. So
I mean, like, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to.
No, go ahead.
But like Lo had said, like even with the Rise episode and everything, and people, you know, feeling safe in a way to, you know, share, you know, their journeys and things of that nature. So it's like, you know, and that's just the smallest of small percentage of what, you know, any army represents or any fan base for that matter. So if you get people who are in these vulnerable situations and really found connection and meaning, you know, within these groups, the music, you know, but even if it's the culture or anything like that, or, you know, any of those kind of aspects to where, you know, there's going to be something that's so personal to you about those things that it makes you almost, I don't want to say like PTSD or anything like that, but if like you're used to seeing, like if you know what this group means to you and then you saw them being hurt or them being antagonized, it might be your first instinct.
Yeah, it's kinda, fight or flight almost.
Exactly. And I do understand those aspects of it, but it's and that's kind of why I don't want to say like basically stay off of social media or anything, but just I would just advise like be cognizant of kind of your time and what you're dealing with, and don't put your energy into anything that's going to ultimately, you know, pollute your mind.
Nah, that's real shit.
You know. I just wanted to say basically all that to say it's like we're up here, you know, we know each other, we talk, you know, with each other all the time, and you know, this is obviously, you know, a huge opportunity for us as far as, you know, we bond closer, it relieves stress for us, we discover new music, we talk about it all the time, so it's amazing for us, but I do love the almost safety and comfort that it's at least allowed to provide to someone behind the screen who might not, again, have that circle to kind of share those feelings with, and that's something that always, you know, holds a lot of meaning for me, so. You always try to come at, you know, any of this from that era of respect, but yeah,
because my point was just like the whole channel was made for people who didn't have the opportunity to talk about these things with friends or family, to talk about it with us, for them to treat us like friends or family, have conversations and like, you know, just kind of give us more information. And I feel like these things can be a teachable moment both ways in situations, and people get so defensive or get so into protective mode that the teachable moment turns into a bash session. And now it's like, oh, well, you don't like, I noticed that when y'all did this, you didn't say you like JK's hair. Fuck you. And it's just like, damn, bro, like it's, you know, my fault I didn't notice it. I'm sorry. Or they like, damn, I'm sorry I didn't know.
So we talked about earlier when we went back and watched one of the old NCT videos. I was that. I was so protective of BTS that I didn't want to like open up and listen or learn about anybody else. And that's really weird for me considering I listen to everything. I don't know why I was so clutched on to BTS at the time. It's like, okay, this is my K-pop home. That's like this is where I'm gonna live here. I'm never going anywhere else. But
that's why I get it. I get it a little bit.
But like it's still, well, for me it's weird, but like I get it. You know what I mean? And I definitely get it. But no, you gotta let that shit go, bro.
Yeah, and that's why I said
you gotta let it go.
I get it, and I'd rather have the moments like be teachable, because like I said, I love when redeemers are just be like, well, no, if we were wrong, this is why you were wrong, and here's some more information on it. Here's a link about it.
Yeah, 'cause it all comes from the area of trying to be a sponge and soak up things and learn. If you're not trying to learn or trying to grow in any way, then it's ultimately fruitless to kind of you know, engage in those sort of things.
Yeah, we probably could talk about this for another hour. We got a couple
all right, cool.
more.
Let's talk about it for another hour.
Oh my God, we got a couple more think pieces kind of like this, because we have a whole did BTS pave the way or the second gen pave the way conversation that's going to be coming up. 4 or 5 other kind of like open discussions. If y'all like these open discussions, y'all got to jump in the comments and let us know y'all like them. Y'all better be subscribed to the channel.
And then we have the real discussion. Who rocked the cotton candy hair better, Jimin or V?
yeah, jump in the comments and have a dope conversation with us. I really do want to like kind of read the room a little bit more and just see how you guys feel on the topic. I'm pretty sure you guys will probably give us like 1,000 examples of why some people are very protective of BTS. But share some of the experiences. Let us know like the certain events happen in y'all life where y'all were forced to kind of
you know what
BTS.
It is, because it also depends on when you came in. Because like songs like "Save Me" and "Fake Love" and things like that, people invest their emotions in because they've been through situations like that. So they kind of, you know what I mean? And then they say, oh, there's somebody better than them. No, but they don't make me feel like these guys make me feel. So they can't be better.
Because not to
Even
get
like
too
the Run and earlier tracks like that.
Because not to get too personal, like people literally have told me like, BTS has saved my life. Or, BTS finds you when you need to be found. Just kind of things of that nature. So the emotional connection to the group, I can already tell with almost a majority of ARMY is at an all-time high. So I kind of can get why the protectiveness and if I felt like something saved my life, I almost feel, I don't want to say like I'm indentured servant or like I'm.
No, but I'm gonna fight to protect it. Like you're not gonna talk shit about it. You're not gonna bash it. You better watch your fucking mouth.
Just as a side note, and like not to deter from your point, but rather to add to it is just like. There's a lot of coldness in the world, you know what I mean? So it's like when you're seeing like constant, like just hate, negativity, and everything like that, it just
a lot of fake love.
Yeah, so it's like when you try to be someone who maintains their humanity and just their empathy and things of that nature, and then you kind of see a group that emulates that so well, it becomes a line that you're tethered to, that you like look up to for guidance, and it re-sparks or recharges your battery, so to speak, and kind of like just nurtures a lot of those things that you hold true to or try to hold true to.
Yeah, because that shit happened on the rise. I remember when the guys was talking about BTS and was talking crazy, I wanted to physically fuck them up, like, you know what I mean? So I definitely like I definitely get like how defensive people can get. I just don't like it when it comes at the behest of like other groups for no reason, especially when, to me, BTS is one of the perfect underdog stories. So Rocky poster right there, we from Philly, we know what an underdog story is like. You don't want to win and then turn into the fucking creep or the bad guy that you had to fight the whole time. So I just think people should be kinder to each other and nicer. And when it is time to turn up, you're allowed to turn up, but it's, chill a little bit. Like, comment, subscribe, #Redeemers. Let us know what other BTS content you want us to react to. Make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel. Jump on the Patreon for content just like this. We love you, ARMY.
Love y'all.
Peace.
Take care.